Hello everyone, hope all of you are fine and welcome to the history class. Beta, this lecture is also in continuation of revision of chapter 3 and name of the chapter is An Empire Across Three Continents. Beta, yesterday we discussed about the topic the early empire. As this chapter is related to the expansion of Roman Empire and the tenure of Roman Empire, it is divided in two phases, early phase and the late phase. So yesterday we discussed about the early phase. So today we will continue with the same topic. Like we know, much more characteristics was the gradual extension of Roman direct rule. Means after 3rd century onwards, there was the direct extension in the Roman Empire, and this was accomplished by absorbing a whole series of dependent kingdoms into Roman provincial territory. It means beta जो भी dependent kingdoms थी Roman province की, all those were absorbed in the Roman Empire, and the Near East was full of such kingdoms. Near East में if you will see here beta, see this is given. The Near East means that someone who lived in the Roman Mediterranean, and this referred to all the territory east of the Mediterranean, chiefly the Roman provinces of Syria, Palestine, Mesopotamia, and the other territories like Arabia. All these were known as the Near East, and all these kingdoms they were absorbed in the Roman Empire. But by the early 2nd century, those who lay west of the Euphrates towards Roman territory had disappeared, swallowed up by the Rome. It means swallowed up by the Rome. It means all these were concluded in the Roman Empire. And even some of these kingdoms, those were extremely wealthy. For example, Herod's kingdom, which that was equal to over 1,25,000 kilogram of gold, that was also absorbed by Roman Empire. In fact, except for Italy, which was not considered a province in these centuries, all the territories of the empire were organized into provinces and subject to taxation. Means all these provinces, those are to pay taxes to the Roman Empire. At its peak in the 2nd century, the Roman Empire stretched from Scotland to the borders of Armenia and from the Sahara to the Euphrates and sometime beyond. And there was no government in the modern sense to help them to run things. So how was it possible for the emperor to cope up with the control and administration of such a vast and diverse set of territories with the population of some 60 million in the mid 2nd century? Now what was the reason? Like as we know that Roman Empire, it was so vast and the population was almost 60 million. So how was it possible to administer such a large area? So what was the reason? And the better answer of this question is the urbanization of the empire. The great urban center that lined the shores of the Mediterranean were the true bedrock of the imperial system. It means all these urban centers, they worked as a backbone to this imperial system, and it was through the cities that government was able to tax the provincial countryside, which generated much of the wealth of the empire. As you know beta, in early time the revenue was generated through taxes, various taxes. So what this mean? That the local upper classes actively collaborated with the Roman state in administering their own territories and raising taxes from them. In fact, one of the most interesting aspects of Roman political history is the dramatic shift in power between Italy and the provinces. Throughout the 2nd and 3rd centuries, it was the provincial upper classes who supplied most of the cadre that governed the provinces and commanded the armies. It means administration was done through the upper classes. So they came to form a new elite of administrators and military commanders who became much more powerful than the senatorial class because they had the backing of the emperors. Like in previous lecture what we read, that senate, it was the very prominent feature of Roman Empire. But now these administrators, they became very powerful. As this new group emerged, the Emperor Gallienus consolidated their rise to power by excluding senators from the military command. It means now army was working under these administrators. We are told that Gallienus forbade senators from serving in the army or having access to it in order to prevent control of the empire from falling into their hand. It means बेटा जो ये senators थे उनसे जो army का control था, it was taken back. And to sum up, in the late 1st and 2nd century, 1st, 2nd and early 3rd centuries, the army and administration were increasingly drawn from the provinces, as citizenship spread to these regions and was no longer confined to Italy. But individuals of Italian origin continued to dominate the Senate, at least till the 3rd century, when senators of provincial origin became a majority. It means now till that time army and administration, it was drawn from the provinces because the citizenship was spreading like the province of Italy. These trends reflected the general decline of Italy within the empire, both political and economic, and the rise of new elites in the wealthier and more urbanized parts of the Mediterranean. Now see, new wealthy areas, those were emerging in the Mediterranean, such as the south of Spain, Africa and the east. A city in the Roman sense was an urban center, was its own magistrates, city council and a territory containing villages which were under its jurisdiction. It means the new system of administration, it was emerging, like the urban center, it has its own magistrates, city council and villages, and all that area comes under the jurisdiction of that magistrate. And vice versa, usually as a mark, villages could be upgraded to the status of cities, and vice versa, usually as a mark of imperial favor. Means अगर किसी area को imperial favor मिल जाती थी, so that villages can be turned to urban area, or vice versa, it means urban area can also be considered as a village. So one crucial advantage of living in a city was simply that it might be better provided for during food shortages and even famine than the countryside. So beta, what was the benefit of these cities? Because there was a proper supply of food even at the time of food shortages and the famine, if we compare with the other area, other rural area of that time. And even beta down of it you can see this image. So beta, public baths, that was a striking feature of Roman urban life, as we are just discussing about the topic of that urban life of Rome. So public baths, it was a very prominent feature of that. So, and urban population also enjoyed a much higher level of entertainment. Means urban area में लोगों को बहुत सारी facilities provide की जाती थी. For example, one calendar tells us that spectacular filled no less than 176 days of the year. It means out of 365 days, only 176 days were working for that public who were living in urban area. Now beta, the next topic is the 3rd century crisis. If the 1st and 2nd centuries were by and large a period of peace, prosperity and economic expansion, the 3rd century brought the first major sign of internal strain. It means at that time internal problems started. From the 230s, the empire found itself fighting on several fronts. Means उस time पे क्या हुआ, simultaneously at so many places the rebels started. In Iran, a new and more aggressive dynasty emerged in 225, and within just 15 years were expanding rapidly in the direction of the Euphrates. So, in a famous rock inscription cut in three languages, Shapur I, the Iranian ruler, claimed he had annihilated a Roman army of 60,000 and even captured the eastern capital of Anitok. Means जो ये Iranian ruler था, he was just moving towards the Euphrates, and the evidences are found on a rock inscription that he killed the Roman army of near about 60,000 soldiers. Meanwhile, a whole series of Germanic tribes, or rather tribal confederacies, the Alemanni, the Franks, and the Goths, they began to move against the Rhine and Danube frontiers. And the whole period from 233 to 280 saw repeated invasions of a whole line of provinces that stretched from the Black Sea to the Alps and the southern Germany. बेटा इससे हमें हमें पता चल रहा है कि एक तो जो ईरान वाला फ्रंट था, they were also just increasing their territories, and with Iranian, that Germany, it was also increasing its frontier. So the Romans, they were forced to abandon much of the territory beyond the Danube, while the emperors of this period were constantly in the field against that the Romans called barbarians. The rapid succession of emperors in the 3rd century is an obvious symptom of strain faced by the empire in this period. बेटा जो ये continuously rebels होते हैं और the other provinces they just extending their territories towards Rome, इसका reason क्या था? Because of the changes in the succession, changes in the empire, like in that 47 years tenure, means 233 से between 233 to 288, in this 47 years 25 emperors changed in Roman Empire, which create the political instability. So beta, this was the topic for today. Hope all of you have understood the topic. Thank you and have a nice day.